Welcome, my friend, to another shared journey. Tonight, you'll step into timeless teachings that have guided people toward clarity and calm for thousands of years. Feel free to notice where you're listening from and the time around you. I'll be offering a thoughtfully selected series of Zen stories, simple on the surface, yet carrying deep truths that can reshape how you meet anxiety, anger, and the endless pull of desire. These are not merely bedtime stories. They are sacred reflections from awakened minds, from masters who remembered what many forget. Peace is not born from changing the world, but from changing how we meet it. A Zen saying tells us that when the mind becomes still, the universe yields. Through these stories, you may begin to feel how this ancient wisdom can gently transform your modern life. As each parable unfolds, the sharp edges of worry may soften, and the noise of inner chatter may slowly fade. A natural quiet begins to appear, effortless, yet deeply profound. These teachings traveled across centuries, through whispers, candlelit halls, and the silence between breaths. Each story acts like a lantern, illuminating a hidden corner of your inner world. Some will slowly loosen patterns you've carried for a long time. Others may leave you with questions more powerful than answers. All of them invite you back to the simplicity of being here, right now. So settle in. Allow your body to be fully supported. Take one slow, aware breath. As you release it, know this is not by chance. These stories have been waiting for you. Let us begin with a story about the difference between seeing and truly experiencing. This is the tale of the blind calligrapher of Mount Farano. High among the mist-covered peaks stood an ancient temple, its aged wooden beams holding centuries of prayer and meditation. Within its walls lived a monk named Kenjiro, blind from birth. Though he had never seen a single character, brushstroke, or mountain view, Kenjiro became famous throughout the land for his extraordinary calligraphy. His reputation spread like ripples on calm water, drawing students from far provinces who traveled for weeks to witness what many believed could not be real. These visitors sat in quiet wonder as Kenjiro's brush glided across rice paper with smooth precision. Each stroke seemed to rise from a deep inner source, flowing naturally through his hand. The characters he formed carried a presence that went far beyond technical perfection or learned skill. They felt alive, pulsing with the very essence of what they expressed. One autumn day, a renowned calligraphy master named Hayashi arrived, his skepticism as sharp as the mountain air. He had heard the tales, yet doubted them deeply. How could a blind man create such beauty? He challenged the monks, his voice cutting through the calm hall. This makes no sense at all. Show me this so-called miracle. When Kenjiro was called forward, he appeared with the same gentle composure that shaped all his actions. He carefully prepared his ink stone, grinding the black stick in slow, mindful circles until the ink reached perfection. He chose a brush, testing its give against his palm, but instead of writing, he extended the brush toward his guest. "Honored master," Kenjiro said with a respectful bow, "would you write the character for Mountain?" Hayashi accepted the brush with confidence. His strokes were firm and precise, shaped by decades of disciplined training and endless hours of practice. The character appeared on the paper, flawless in balance and form, beautiful by every traditional measure. Kenjiro traced the dry ink with his fingertips, reading it through touched the way others read words. A faint, knowing smile softened his face. "I can sense you write as someone who has seen many mountains," he said gently. "Your strokes reveal great technical skill. But tell me, honored master, have you ever been a mountain?" The question lingered like incense smoke. Hayashi frowned. "How could a man be a mountain?" Kenjiro calmly reclaimed the brush. "When I write mountain," Kenjiro said quietly, "I do not see its outline with my eyes. I become its stillness, the deep silence resting inside stone. I feel its vast weight pressing through endless layers of earth, its roots reaching toward the molten core below. I sense its peak, touching the open sky where clouds gather and winds are born." As he spoke, the brush met the paper. Hayashi watched, spellbound, as the form emerged unlike anything before. The strokes seemed to rise from within the page, as if the mountain itself were forming. Each line carried gravity and presence. Every curve hinted at immeasurable time. The finished character felt three-dimensional, roots sinking into the fibers and a summit rising beyond the page. "The character writes itself," Kenjiro said softly, placing the brush aside. "I am only the mountain's temporary hand." The Buddha taught that three things cannot remain hidden: the sun, the moon, and the truth. The deeper lesson is that true mastery is not gained by collecting knowledge, but by dissolving the distance between ourselves and direct experience. Why do we struggle to distinguish knowing about something from truly knowing it? Zen shows how the mind divides: observer and observed, the experiencer and the experience. This duality becomes a veil, blocking us from genuine understanding. We gather information, practice techniques, and memorize facts, yet stay far from the living essence we seek. Notice this in daily life. You may understand love scientifically and psychologically, yet feel lost when confronting the movements of your own heart. You might study meditation for years, mastering posture and breath, while missing simple presence itself. You may analyze leadership theories without touching the quiet authority born of care and awareness. The blind calligrapher embodies what Zen calls beginner's mind, a state of fresh, direct engagement free from assumptions. Because Kenjiro had never seen mountains, he was not bound by images or conventions. His blindness became a doorway to deeper knowing, bypassing analysis and touching the mountain's essential nature. Zen master Dogen taught that to study the Buddha way is to study the self, and to study the self is to forget the self. This forgetting is an opening, not a loss. When Kenjiro wrote, "No separate self remained," allowing mountain nature to speak through his hand. This teaching asks us to look closely at our own relationship with mastery and understanding. Are you trying to know about your life, or are you willing to live it directly? When you walk, can you become the walking? When you hear music, can you dissolve into pure listening? When challenges arise, can you embody the answer instead of thinking your way toward it? Master Hayashi reflects our familiar path of learning through technique, repetition, and careful analysis. This approach has value and purpose, yet it can quietly become a trap if it keeps us skimming the surface of experience, admiring our skill instead of yielding to deeper creative currents. True mastery often appears as a paradox, a letting go of what we believe we already know. The surgeon, whose hands move with intuitive accuracy beyond conscious thought. The musician, who vanishes into sound as music plays itself. The parent, who responds from love's natural intelligence rather than fixed theories. Tonight, as you engage with whatever draws you, can you try Kenjiro's way? Instead of doing something well, can you become what wishes to express? Can you write as words themselves, walk as the path, love as love, as the Buddha taught? When you see how perfect everything already is, you may tilt your head back and laugh at the sky. Perfection does not live in technique, but in our readiness to disappear into each moment's truth, letting life move through us with the effortless artistry that arises when the small self steps aside. Our next story reveals a deep truth about distraction and inner peace. This is the teaching of the temple cat. At Shenji Temple, nestled among ancient cedar trees where morning mist hung like visible prayers, monastic life followed a steady rhythm, as predictable as the changing seasons. Monks rose before dawn, chanted together in the morning, tended gardens, and gathered twice daily for seated meditation in the main hall. This calm routine had remained unchanged for generations, creating a deep tranquility visitors felt the instant they passed through the temple gates. Yet this serenity was regularly interrupted by a single plump tabby cat named Tama. She arrived years earlier as a kitten, and the monks, guided by compassion for all beings, welcomed her fully. Over time, Tama developed a habit that could only be described as both strange and persistent. Whenever the monks settled into meditation, arranging robes and quieting their minds for the practice of zazen, Tama would appear. She seemed to sense the precise moment when inner stillness was just beginning to take shape. At that exact moment, she would slip into the hall on silent pause and begin her rounds. Sometimes she wove between the monks, her tail brushing their faces. Other times she jumped onto a lap, placing her heavy body onto legs already numb. She especially enjoyed knocking over the small wooden water bowls beside each cushion, splashing droplets across the polished floor. On the most disruptive days, she would swat the hanging bell near the altar, sending random chimes through the hall. The head monk, Aizen, felt his patience thinning as meditation turned into frustration management instead of peace. His jaw tightened whenever Tama's paws tapped the wooden floor. His breath grew shallow when yet another water bowl tipped over. Even seeing the cat approach the hall sent irritation rippling through his carefully trained calm. At last, Aizen could no longer contain himself. He went to the abbot, Serenity, an elderly man whose weathered face reflected decades of deep contemplation. "Venerable teacher," Aizen said with a deep bow, "this cat makes true meditation impossible. Every session becomes a parade of distractions. She must be removed from the hall if we are to preserve the sacred atmosphere of our practice." Abbot Serenity listened with the same patient presence he gave to all concerns. When Aizen finished, the old teacher smiled gently. "Tomorrow morning," he said, "let us try an experiment. Instead of resisting Tama's behavior, instruct the monks to continue meditating regardless of what she does. Let them meet her actions as they would any sensation, with awareness and without resistance." The next morning, as the pre-dawn gong marked the start of meditation, Aizen shared the abbot's guidance. Some monks looked doubtful, others resigned, yet all took their seats with a different quality of attention. They would meet whatever arose with presence rather than reaction. As if called by an unseen signal, Tama appeared at the hall's entrance. She began her usual routine, wandering among the seated monks, investigating bowls, repeating her familiar disruptions. But something unusual happened. When she tipped the first bowl, the monk affected kept breathing steadily, unmoving. When she settled onto another monk's lap, he remained perfectly still, neither welcoming nor resisting her weight. Tama paused, confused by the lack of response. She tugged at a robe hem. Nothing. She knocked over another bowl. The monk never opened his eyes. She even set the small altar bell ringing, yet the monks stayed undisturbed, their awareness resting in a vast stillness that held every sound. After about 10 minutes, something unexpected occurred. Tama walked to a corner, circled 3 times, and curled up to sleep. For the rest of the session, the only sound was her gentle purring, which seemed to deepen the silence rather than break it. When meditation ended, Abbot Soren gathered the monks. "You see," he said with a quiet smile, "Tama was never the distraction. Your reaction to Tama was. She was simply being a cat, following her nature, exploring the present moment. Once you learn to be monks, accepting whatever arose without resistance, she had nothing left to disturb." From that day on, Tama was known as the most peaceful temple cat in the province. As the Buddha taught, you are not punished for anger, but by it. This ancient wisdom reveals the heart of Tama's lesson. Suffering comes not from conditions outside us, but from resisting what is. How often do we blame our inner unrest on external things? The noisy neighbor who steals our peace, the situation we believe should be different, the slow driver who sparks our impatience, the crying baby on a flight that shatters our calm, the demanding boss who unsettles our day. Like the monks before awakening, we blame outer distractions for our pain, missing the deeper truth that resistance itself creates the suffering. Zen teaches that real peace is not the absence of disturbance, but the presence of equanimity amid whatever appears. The Sanskrit word is sama, meaning balanced or even. It points to a mind that stays steady with pleasure or pain, praise or blame, success or failure. This steadiness is not numbness or indifference. It is a lively, aware responsiveness that avoids the trap of attraction and aversion. Notice your own reactivity. Your peace feels present when conditions suit you, yet vanishes when noise, tension, or conflict appears. You feel calm when others meet expectations, and irritated when they do not. You relax when plans unfold smoothly, and tense when disruptions arise. This kind of conditional peace is fragile, because it depends on controlling circumstances mostly beyond our control. The world will not reshape itself to match our preferences. Cats will be cats. People will be people. Life will keep offering countless experiences, many misaligned with our wishes. Deeper freedom comes from discovering what Zen calls our original nature. That basic awareness remains untouched by whatever appears within it. As the sky is unharmed by passing clouds, this essential consciousness is not damaged by thoughts, emotions, or sensations that arise and fade. Thich Nhat Hanh taught, "Thanks to impermanence, everything is possible. Because all experiences are temporary, including our reactions, space opens for a new way of meeting difficulty. Knowing this will pass allows greater openness. The monks transformed when they stopped chasing perfect conditions and learned to rest within imperfect ones, shifting from control to acceptance, from resistance to allowing, reveals a stability no circumstance can touch. This does not mean passivity or avoiding wise action. If Tama had truly caused harm, practical steps would have been necessary. Wisdom lies in knowing when outer change is needed and when inner acceptance is called for. Tonight, notice the cats in your life, the small irritations and disruptions that unsettle you. Can you try the monk's way? Before fixing or avoiding, can you first observe your reaction? Can you breathe with whatever arises, neither pushing it away nor clinging to it? As the Buddha taught, peace comes from within. Do not seek it elsewhere. It is available now. Amid whatever Tama is doing in your life today, let us continue with a story on generosity in the face of seeming impossibility. This is the story of the merchant's impossible delivery. In a thriving mountain town's busy trading quarter, where coins clinked and voices filled the air from dawn to dusk, lived a rice merchant named Ichiro. His reputation was built on reliability, always delivering grain exactly as promised, regardless of hardship or weather. His word was his bond, and his livelihood rested entirely on the trust he had earned through years of honest trade. One early spring morning, Ichiro received a desperate request from a village high in the mountain passes. A late frost had ruined much of their stored food, leaving their winter supplies dangerously low. They needed rice immediately and offered generous payment for swift delivery. For Ichiro, this meant profit, but also the chance to help people in true need. He loaded his strongest mules with the finest rice and set out before dawn, resolved to reach the village within 2 days. The mountain trail was steep and dangerous, yet familiar from past journeys. What he did not expect was the news shared by other travelers. The main pass had fallen under the control of desperate men turned bandits, driven to robbery as their own villages faced hunger. As Ichiro neared the narrow pass, his thoughts raced. If he turned back, the rice would spoil before another route could be found. Spring warmth would ruin the grain. The village would starve, and his reputation would collapse. If he fought, he faced many men alone, armed only with a small knife meant for cutting rope. Troubled and uncertain, Ichiro made a choice that surprised him. He turned back toward the nearest town and sought out the Zen master Sengai, known for practical wisdom and unexpected answers to impossible problems. "Master," Ichiro said, bowing deeply before the simple wooden hut where Sengai lived, "I face a problem with no good solution. I must deliver rice beyond the mountain pass, but bandits control the road. I cannot go around because the rice will spoil. I cannot fight them alone. If I fail, people will starve, and my livelihood will be lost." Master Sengai listened with the same deep attention he gave to all matters. He sat silently for several long minutes, hands resting in his lap, eyes focused beyond the immediate problem. At last, he looked up, his gaze shining with an unexpected hint of mischief. "Go to the pass at dawn tomorrow," he said calmly. "When you meet the bandits, bow respectfully and offer them half your rice as a gift for their hungry families." Ichiro's heart sank. "But master," he protested, anxiety tightening his voice. "Then I won't have enough rice to fulfill my promise. They've already paid me, and depend on the full amount to survive until harvest. I'll be ruined, and they will still suffer." Master Sengai remained serene. "Trust me," he said gently, with the quiet authority of one who had seen beyond many impossible situations. Though every practical instinct resisted this advice, Ichiro had heard too many stories of Sengai's wisdom to ignore it. With a heavy heart full of doubt, he returned to his mules and camped near the pass, spending a restless night wrestling with the master's puzzling counsel. At dawn, with morning mist still clinging to the mountain slopes, Ichiro reached the narrow pass where the road pressed between tall stone walls. As expected, 3 rough-looking men stepped from behind boulders. Their clothes were worn, their faces hollow with hunger, and their eyes carried the hard edge of desperation. Before any threats were spoken, Ichiro dismounted and bowed deeply. "Good morning, friends," he said, steadying his voice despite his pounding heart. "I'm carrying rice to the village beyond this pass. Would you accept half my load as a gift for your families?" The men stared at him in stunned confusion. This was not how such meetings usually unfolded. The leader, gray-haired with sharp, intelligent eyes beneath a fierce exterior, stepped forward warily. "What kind of trick is this?" he demanded, his hand drifting toward the knife at his belt. "Merchants don't offer gifts to bandits." "There's no trick," Ichiro replied, meeting his gaze with calm sincerity. "I simply thought you and your families might be hungry. If you block this road, you must have a reason." Silence followed, broken only by wind moving through the high mountain peaks. The 3 men exchanged glances, an unspoken understanding passing between them. Slowly, the leader's suspicions softened into something like wonder. "You're either the bravest man I've met," he said, "or the most foolish." Then he laughed, not mockingly, but with relief. "Very well, stranger. We'll help you unload half your rice. But you should know something." As they transferred grain into simple packs, the leader explained. "The village you're heading to, that's where our families live. Our wives, children, and parents are there. We've tried for weeks to bring them food, but had no money," he said, gesturing at the roadblock. "So, we became what we never imagined." Understanding dawned on Ichiro, like sunlight breaking over the peaks. Not only would he finish his delivery, these men would protect it to the village. When Ichiro arrived, the villagers paid the agreed price and more. The former bandits also rewarded him for reuniting them with their families and helping them return home with dignity. As the Buddha observed, generosity brings happiness at every stage of its expression. From this story arises a deep teaching about the creative power of giving when situations seem to demand taking or withholding. Why do we instinctively hoard in times of scarcity? Zen points to a misunderstanding about abundance and security rooted in conditioned thinking. Scarcity thinking believes there is never enough, that we must guard what we have, and that another's gain means our loss. This mindset creates the limits it fears. Notice how this appears in daily life. When time feels scarce, we rush conversations and withhold attention. When money worries arise, we may hold back generosity that could open new paths of prosperity. When we fear judgment, we suppress authentic expression that might invite acceptance. The merchant's story shows what becomes possible when we act from abundance instead of fear. Even when circumstances seem to demand caution, Ichiro's choice to give away half his rice was not naive hope, but trust in a deeper truth. Real generosity forges unexpected connections and uncovers hidden paths. Zen teacher Suzuki Roshi said, "You are perfect as you are, and you could use a little improvement." This paradox also applies to our resources. We always have enough for what truly needs doing, and more to share than we imagine. The bandits represent parts of ourselves that turn to taking when giving feels impossible. When we feel starved for attention, safety, or love, we may become emotional bandits, trying to extract what we think we lack. Yet, like the hungry men at the pass, These strategies often block us from what we seek. Notice how the merchant transformed everything by offering what others meant to take. He erased the false line between giver and receiver. Enemies became allies. The impossible delivery became unavoidable. And everyone's needs were met beyond expectation. This does not mean ignoring real danger or giving away what is needed for survival. Wisdom includes discernment about when and how to give. Still, it suggests our instinct to protect and withhold can blind us to creative options that appear only when we lead with openness. The Buddha taught that thousands of candles can be lit from one without shortening its life. Happiness does not diminish when shared. True abundance follows a different logic than scarcity. When we share attention, it multiplies. When we offer kindness, it returns enlarged. When we give trust, trustworthiness grows. Tonight, consider the impossible deliveries in your own life. Moments of competing demands and limited resources. What gift could shift the situation? Instead of focusing on lack, what might you offer? Rather than guarding what you have, how might sharing create new possibilities? As the Buddha said, give, even if you have little. Sometimes, the smallest offering, made with sincere care, opens doors no clever plan could unlock. Now we turn to a story about the paradox of not knowing and true understanding. This is the tale of the student who forgot to learn. At Daikoji Monastery, set on a hillside, where ancient pines whispered to the wind, daily study and practice had remained unchanged for centuries. Young monks arrived, eager to absorb Zen's deep teachings, their minds hungry for enlightenment. They memorized sutras, debated philosophy, and quietly competed to show progress. Among them was a young man named Moan, whose presence gradually became a mystery to teachers and students alike, while others advanced quickly, memorizing complex teachings in weeks, grasping subtle koans in months, and moving steadily through levels of insight. Moan seemed to understand almost nothing at all. After 3 full years of training, he still struggled with ideas newcomers grasped in their first month. Asked to recite basic sutras, he stumbled over words heard hundreds of times. Given simple koans meant to spark insight, he sat in confused silence, unable to penetrate even their surface meaning. His notebook stayed nearly blank, not from laziness, but from a genuine inability to grasp what others found obvious. Fellow students, once compassionate, began whispering with a mix of pity and contempt, "How can anyone be this dense?" They muttered quietly during evening meals. "He's been here longer than all of us," they said, hearing the same teachings every day, yet he understands less than a new arrival. Some privately suggested Moan should leave the monastery and seek a simpler life better suited to his apparent limits. His presence seemed to slow the serious work of spiritual study, and his blank stare during lectures unsettled students eager to learn. Yet the teaching master showed endless patience. Something in Moan's sincerity, steady effort, and humble acceptance of failure kept the master from giving up on him. Perhaps the master believed some students simply needed more time to ripen. One afternoon, during an advanced teaching on Buddha mind, the fundamental awareness Zen points to as our true nature, the master explained subtle differences between ordinary consciousness and awakened awareness. The ideas were complex, filled with paradoxes that challenged even the brightest minds. The master spoke of mind as ungraspable and unlocatable, yet intimately present in every moment. The hall filled with intense concentration as students strained to follow his words. Some scribbled notes rapidly, others frowned in deep thought, and a few nodded as if they had understood something profound. In the midst of this intensity, Moan slowly raised his hand, something he rarely did. Likely from embarrassment over his usual confusion, the room went silent as all eyes turned toward him, expecting another display of misunderstanding. "Master," Moan said gently, "I must admit I don't understand what Buddha mind is, despite your careful explanations. But I've noticed something strange over these past 3 years. When I try to find my own mind, the thing everyone speaks of, I can't locate it anywhere. I've searched for it repeatedly, but it never appears. Is this a serious flaw in my practice? The silence deepened, until even the wind through the pines outside sounded loud. The master stared at Moan for a long moment, his expression moving from surprise to recognition, then to something like joy. Suddenly, he burst into laughter, not a polite chuckle, but deep, spontaneous laughter rising from a place of profound delight. The other students traded confused looks, unsure if this was more of Moan's hopeless misunderstanding or something entirely different. "You magnificent fool!" the master cried, laughing through tears. "You've been enlightened for 3 years, and far too simple to realize it. While others have been stuffing their minds with ideas about awakening, you've been directly living what they only think about." Turning to the group, the master spoke in awe. What Moan discovered through pure simplicity is the realization that mind can't be found as an object, because you are mind itself. He had been abiding in the awareness that words and teachings merely point toward. The students sat stunned as this landed, while they gathered theories and debated Buddha nature, striving for a special state. Moan had stumbled into immediate recognition of what they all sought. He became the first student in the monastery's long history to receive Dharma transmission without knowing what it was. Ancient wisdom says, "In the beginner's mind are many possibilities. In the expert's, few." Here lies Zen's paradox. Not knowing can lead more directly to truth than knowledge. Why do we assume understanding comes from filling the mind with information? Education trains us to solve ignorance by collecting facts and frameworks. This works in many areas, yet becomes an obstacle when applied to directly recognizing our own essential nature. Notice this in spiritual seeking. You may read endless meditation books without resting in presence. You might study happiness philosophies while missing contentment now. You could analyze relationship advice endlessly while overlooking love that flows when analysis stops. Zen master Hangpo taught, "The foolish reject what they see, not what they think. The wise reject what they think, not what they see." Moan's foolishness was true wisdom. He trusted direct experience over concepts and reported honestly what he found, rather than pretending understanding. The other students reflect our usual learning style, gathering information, comparing progress, chasing what we imagine we lack. This comparison breeds suffering by assuming enlightenment is something to gain instead of something already present to recognize. Moan's insight arose from having no spiritual ambition. He wasn't trying to awaken, prove insight, or impress anyone. His failure to grasp ideas created space where direct experience could appear naturally. This teaching doesn't promote laziness or reject study. It points to the difference between knowledge that connects us to reality and knowledge that separates us from it. One serves awakening, the other replaces it. Notice how constant mental commentary obscures presence. When watching a sunset, are you seeing colors or thinking about sunsets? With someone you love, are you present or analyzing? When you sit quietly, are you meeting the silence or having thoughts about meditation? The Buddha said, "It is better to travel well than to arrive." Moan was traveling well, unaware he had already arrived. His comfort with not knowing, his searching without finding, and his curiosity without conclusions created the openness that is enlightenment itself. Modern spiritual seeking often mirrors the other students, trying harder, studying more, using complex techniques, and measuring progress against imagined ideals. But what if striving to become someone else, even an enlightened version, pulls you away from who you already are? Tonight, can you honor Moan's gift of not knowing instead of solving everything? Can you rest in the mystery of your own immediate experience? What is present when you stop trying to improve, explain, or fix it? As the Buddha taught, do not believe something simply because you have heard it. After observation and reflection, when you see it leads to good and benefit for all, accept it and live by it. Deep truth often reveals itself not through complex analysis, but through the simple willingness to see what is actually here, beyond ideas of what should be. As we continue our journey through Zen wisdom, let us explore a story about unexpected teachings, born from complete authenticity. This is the tale of the innkeeper Zen. At a busy crossroads where mountain paths met from all directions, stood a modest inn serving travelers between distant villages. The location was perfect for business, unavoidable for those crossing the region. Yet its reputation was complicated by the temperament of its owner. Fujiwara, the innkeeper, was infamous for his dreadful disposition. He seemed offended by the mere presence of guests, greeting late arrivals with curses and complaints. If anyone knocked after what he deemed reasonable, he would fling the door open, shouting about inconsiderate travelers, with no respect for hard-working innkeepers. If guests rose early and disturbed his routine, he scolded them for noise and disruption. Though travelers had no alternative, Fujiwara made nearly everyone miserable. He slammed meals down resentfully, muttered about impossible guests, and filled the inn with tension that left even exhausted travelers eager to leave at dawn. One stormy autumn evening, as wind howled through the passes and rain battered the wooden shutters, a traveling monk appeared at Fujiwara's door. He was soaked through, simple robes clinging to his thin body, sandal-clad feet thick with mud from the dangerous mountain paths. Fujiwara flung the door open with his familiar scowl, eyeing the monk's soaked appearance with clear annoyance. "Another one," he grumbled, stepping aside reluctantly. "You'll want a room, dry clothes, and a hot meal, no doubt. And don't track that mud through my clean inn." The monk bowed politely, water dripping from his travel hat. "Thank you for offering shelter on such a difficult night," he said sincerely, which only irritated Fujiwara more. "Kindness?" Fujiwara snorted. "This is business, not charity. And don't expect breakfast. I'm not running a refuge for wandering monks." He led the monk to a small room, continuing his complaints about rude guests, awful weather, and the misery of running an inn when people insisted on traveling during storms. That night, the monk lay awake on his thin mat, listening to Fujiwara's voice echo through the wooden walls. The innkeeper seemed to be arguing angrily with the storm itself, cursing the wind for shaking the shutters, yelling at the rain for pounding the roof, and raging at the weather's total disregard for his comfort. By morning, as the storm eased and pale light filtered through the clouds, the monk came to settle his bill. Fujiwara was already irritable, having spent a restless night battling the elements with complaints. "Before I leave," the monk said, bowing deeply, "I must thank you. You are a remarkable teacher, and I'm grateful for the profound lesson you offered me last night." Fujiwara stared in disbelief. "Teacher?" he scoffed. "I'm an innkeeper, not a philosopher. I know nothing about Buddhism. I just deal with impossible guests in terrible weather." The monk smiled, with the quiet joy of someone who had received an unexpected gift. "As I listen to you curse the storm, shout at the wind, and rage at the rain," the monk said, "I realized something important. The storm never argued back. The wind didn't defend itself. The rain took no offense at your words. They simply continued being what they are, untouched by your emotions." The monk paused, letting the insight settle. "You showed me that anger is like weather passing through the human heart. It doesn't alter the true nature of anything. The storm stayed a storm. The wind stayed wind. The rain stayed rain. And you remained yourself a decent man offering shelter, even while feeling frustration." Fujiwara frowned, trying to grasp what the monk meant. "But I was just angry," Fujiwara said. "I hate storms, lost sleep, and disrupted routines. What's special about that?" "Exactly," the monk replied warmly. "Pure, honest anger without disguise or philosophy layered over it. You weren't trying to be wise or holy, only exactly what you felt. That honesty is rare. Most people hide emotions behind politeness or spiritual ideas. You let your feelings be fully themselves, just as the storm was fully a storm." The monk lifted his simple pack, ready to continue his journey. "You taught me something I had never truly understood. In fact, accepting our emotions fully, letting them be exactly as they are without judgment or resistance, may be the first step toward loosening their hold on us. Thank you for your honest teaching, the monk said. After he vanished down the mountain path, Fujiwara stood in the doorway for a long while, reflecting on the strange encounter. He had always seen his temper as a flaw, something that made him unpleasant and likely chased customers away. Yet in the weeks that followed, something unexpected happened. His anger slowly began to soften, not because he suppressed it or forced kindness, but because he had finally accepted it completely. He realized that battling his temperament had been like yelling at a storm, exhausting and useless. When he stopped resisting his natural reactions, they began to change on their own. The Buddha spoke of this. What you resist persists. What you accept transforms. The heart of this lesson is knowing the difference between feeling emotions and being trapped by them. Why do we struggle so deeply with our own emotional weather? Zen teaches that we misunderstand feelings. We believe emotions define who we are, that anger makes us angry people, sadness makes us sad people, fear makes us fearful people. This identification adds suffering as we judge ourselves for natural human responses. Notice this in daily life. When irritation arises, an inner voice may appear. I shouldn't feel this. This isn't spiritual. If I were more evolved, I wouldn't react this way. Such resistance creates tension and often prolongs the very emotion we want to escape. The innkeeper's story shows what happens when we stop fighting inner weather. Fujiwara wasn't trying to be angry. He simply was angry and expressed it without self-judgment. Paradoxically, this full acceptance created the space for genuine transformation to occur naturally. Zen teacher Pema Chodron says, "You are perfect as you are, and you could use a little improvement." This is not a contradiction. It points to the truth that real change begins with radical self-acceptance. We cannot change what we refuse to acknowledge or heal what we constantly battle. The monk recognized that the innkeeper's raw honesty was an unconscious teaching. Our culture often mistakes emotional control for spiritual maturity. Yet true freedom may lie in allowing feelings to be fully themselves, while knowing we are the open awareness in which they arise and fade. This does not mean indulging every impulse or harming others. Wisdom includes knowing when and how to express emotions skillfully. Still, it suggests our first response to difficult feelings should be acceptance, not resistance. Notice how the innkeeper's anger was simply honest contact with reality. He disliked storms, broken sleep, and muddy floors, and said so plainly. There was no pretense, no spiritual bypassing, no attempt to be someone else. This rough authenticity created room for real change. The storm represents all life conditions that don't align with our preferences. The weather of job stress, relationship conflict, illness, financial strain, and countless daily irritations that stir emotions, like natural storms. These conditions have their own rhythm, independent of our opinions. The Buddha taught, hatred does not cease by hatred, but only by love. This is the eternal rule. Yet love begins with accepting what we actually feel, not forcing emotions we think we should have. The innkeeper changed when he stopped rejecting his anger. Tonight, as emotional weather moves through you, frustration with slow change, anxiety about the future, or grief over the past, can you try Fujiwara's unwitting wisdom? Instead of trying to fix, improve, or spiritualize your feelings, can you allow them to be exactly as they are? Can you meet your humanity with the same patience you offer a passing storm? As the Buddha said, the way is not in the sky. The way is in the heart. Sometimes, peace is found by moving straight through unrest, not avoiding it. By fully accepting our inner storms, we discover the vast, calm awareness, untouched by any weather. Now let us turn to a story about recognition and wisdom hidden in plain sight. This is the lesson of the visitor and the holy man. Word spread across the countryside of a remarkable holy man, said to possess great wisdom and power. People claimed he could answer any question, resolve any problem, and transform troubled lives. He was said to live in a simple house, high on a mountain, far from village distractions and corruption. A man from the valley below faced a stubborn problem that seemed to have no solution. He tried everything, consulting friends, seeking elders' advice, even visiting other teachers. Nothing brought the clarity or peace he longed for. When he heard of the holy man on the mountain, he knew he must go, regardless of difficulty. The mountain path was steep and dangerous. He climbed for hours beneath the hot sun, feet aching, breath strained, water running low, yet his resolve stayed firm. He believed meeting this legendary figure would end his troubles through superior wisdom and insight. At last, exhausted and dusty, he reached the simple house at the mountain's peak. The house was modest and weathered, just as expected of one beyond worldly concerns. He approached the door with reverence and anticipation, ready to meet someone far wiser than ordinary people. When he knocked, an elderly servant opened the door. The man looked plain and unremarkable, simple clothes, humble manner, entirely ordinary. He resembled any servant from the visitor's village. "I wish to see the wise holy man," the visitor said, barely looking at him, already peering past into the house for a glimpse of greatness. The servant smiled kindly and motioned him inside. "Please come in," he said softly, guiding him through the modest rooms. The visitor looked around eagerly, heart racing, scanning each space for signs of holiness, special robes, sacred objects, or an unmistakable aura of peace. The servant led him quietly through the modest rooms, past plain furniture and ordinary household items. Before the visitor fully realized it, they had crossed the entire house and reached the back door. The servant opened it and gestured gently toward the path, descending the mountain. The visitor stopped short, confusion and disappointment flooding him. "Wait," he said, turning with growing frustration. "I didn't climb all this way to tour an empty house. I came to see the holy man. Where is he?" The old servant's smile widened, his eyes sparkling with soft amusement. "You have already seen him," he said calmly. "More importantly, I have a teaching that will resolve whatever problem brought you here." The visitor stared, bewildered. This ordinary old man could not be the legendary figure he imagined. Where was the radiant presence, the obvious signs of attainment? The servant continued, his voice quiet yet certain. "Everyone you meet, no matter how plain they seem, regard each as a wise and holy man or woman. If you truly do this, the problem you carried here today will dissolve." Buddha's wisdom tells us, if you wish to know your past, look at your present condition. If you wish to know your future, look at your present actions. This story reveals a deep truth. We find only what we are prepared to see. Our ability to recognize determines what wisdom becomes available. Why do we seek the sacred in special places, while overlooking the wisdom surrounding us each day? Zen points to our conditioning that links truth with dramatic appearances and impressive figures. Yet the deepest teachings often arrive disguised within ordinary encounters. The visitor's real problem was not the outer difficulty that led him up the mountain. It was his inability to recognize wisdom when it failed to match his expectations. Focused on finding someone who looked holy, he nearly missed the true teacher standing before him. Reflect on your daily interactions. How often do you dismiss people who don't seem impressive or educated? The cashier who greets you warmly, the janitor who works with quiet pride, the child who asks innocent yet profound questions. Any of these moments may hold the insight you need, if you're open to receiving it. This teaching reshapes how we move through the world. Instead of hunting for wisdom in special places or waiting for obvious sages, we approach everyone as a possible teacher, the homeless person, the difficult coworker, even the family member who irritates us. Each becomes a teacher when we're ready to learn. Zen master Dogen taught, to study the Buddha way is to study the self. To study the self is to forget the self. When we truly see others as sacred, our ego's need to feel special naturally fades. The visitor's disappointment arose from clinging to exclusive wisdom instead of recognizing wisdom everywhere. The Buddha said that thousands of candles can be lit from one without shortening its life. Happiness never lessens by being shared. Every person carries this same capacity to ignite understanding in others, when we approach them knowing they may have something valuable to offer. Look closely at your relationships and everyday encounters. Where might wisdom be overlooked because it arrives in an ordinary form? How would your interactions change if you treated each person as a possible hidden holy man or woman? Tonight, as you reflect on family, co-workers, and strangers, can you practice this teaching, seeing beyond roles and appearances to the deeper wisdom every conscious being carries? Can you meet tomorrow's encounters, knowing your next teacher may be standing right before you, waiting to be recognized? As the Buddha observed, in the sky there is no east or west. People create distinctions in their own minds, then believe them to be real. The lines between holy and ordinary, wise and simple, teacher and student exist mainly in thought. When we see beyond these mental categories, we discover wisdom everywhere, patiently waiting for recognition. Now let us explore a Zen story about the irreplaceable power of direct spiritual transmission. This is the tale of Bankei and the messenger. In the busy capital, where merchants bargained in crowded markets and scholars debated in tea houses, the renowned Zen master Bankei had just finished another teaching period at a great temple. Known for guiding students directly to their Buddha nature, he traveled simply between temples, teaching wherever sincerity appeared. As the master prepared to leave, folding his few belongings into a travel bundle, a finely dressed gentleman approached with urgent courtesy. His silk robes and careful manner suggested familiarity with noble circles, likely a retainer to one of the families supporting the temple. "Venerable master," the man said with a deep bow, "I come on behalf of the Baron, a learned man with sincere interest in your teachings. He longs to meet you, but urgent duties have detained him today. It was not dawn of us." End quote. Would you delay your departure by one day so he may study with you tomorrow? Though eager to reach the next temple, Bankei sensed genuine need. The teacher's path required compassion and flexibility. "Of course," he replied simply. "I will stay one more day." The master unpacked and settled again into the temple quarters, spending the evening in quiet meditation and preparation. He anticipated a meaningful meeting, having known many nobles who approached Zen with humility despite status, and he looked forward to offering whatever guidance might serve the seeker. Morning came with clear skies and temple bells calling the community to meditation. Bankei waited in the meeting room as the hour approached. Instead of the Baron, however, the same well-dressed messenger returned, his face marked with clear embarrassment. "Master," he said apologetically, "I bring unfortunate news. The Baron has been called away on urgent affairs of state that cannot wait. Yet he still seeks your teaching and asks that I receive instruction in his place and carry your words back to him faithfully." The gentleman paused, clearly hoping this proposal would be acceptable. "The Baron's question concerns the nature of mind itself," he said. "He wishes to know what consciousness truly is and how it may be realized directly. If you share your teaching, I will carry every word back, exactly as spoken." Bankei listened with gentle care, his expression calm and compassionate. When the man finished, the master sat quietly for a moment, as if considering not only the question, but the whole situation: the absent seeker, the sincere messenger, and the quiet impossibility of the request itself. At last, Bankei spoke with his usual clarity. "The matter of Zen is hard to convey, even face-to-face between teacher and student. To transmit it through a messenger," he said softly, "is even more difficult indeed, impossible no matter how earnest that messenger may be." Having said this, the master fell silent. He simply sat, embodying the teaching he had expressed. The gentleman waited, perhaps expecting further explanation, but none came. Confused and without words, he bowed respectfully and withdrew from the temple. The Buddha once said, "Be a lamp unto yourself." This truth is revealed in Bankei's gentle refusal to reduce Zen to a message sent by proxy. Awakening cannot be handed down second-hand, because it is not information but transformation. Why do we so often treat spiritual learning like academic knowledge that can be passed along? Zen teaches that awakening is not an idea to grasp, but a reality to live. Like the taste of water to someone who is thirsty, it cannot be explained adequately. It must be experienced directly. The Baron's question reflects our usual approach. We want to understand awareness intellectually, to hold it as a concept, to possess it as knowledge. But consciousness cannot be turned into an object, because it is the subject itself. It is like trying to see your own eyes without a mirror. The seeing is what you are seeking. Notice how often you approach wisdom as information to gather, rather than truth to embody. We read books about meditation instead of sitting quietly. We study descriptions of enlightenment instead of examining our present experience. We ask what mind is, rather than looking directly at what we call mind. Zen master Dogen taught that to study the Buddha way is to study the self. To study the self is to forget the self. This paradox points to why true transmission requires direct encounter. The self that wants to understand Zen intellectually is the very construct that must be seen through. This happens not by accumulating ideas, but through intimate attention to immediate experience. The messenger represents our tendency to approach awakening indirectly. We want to study consciousness from a safe distance, preserving the sense of being an observer examining an object called awareness. Yet awareness is not something we possess, it is what we are. It cannot be owned, fully understood, or passed along, because we are expressions of it. Bankei's silence after his brief reply was itself a teaching. In Zen, silence often communicates what words cannot: the gaps between thoughts, the pause between breaths, the awareness in which all experience appears. These cannot be captured by language, but they can be directly recognized when we stop grasping at concepts. This does not mean spiritual teaching is useless, or that teachers are unnecessary. Rather, true teaching points students back to their own immediate experience, not to borrowed descriptions of realization. A teacher does not give enlightenment, but helps create the conditions in which students may recognize what they already are. Tonight, as you notice the simple fact of being aware of these words, of your body, of the space where thoughts arise, can you look directly at this awareness instead of thinking about it? Can you meet experience itself rather than relying on someone else's explanations? As the Buddha taught, work out your own liberation with care. The path to freedom cannot be walked by proxy. It requires your own steps, your own breath, and the courage to look directly at what you have always been, though perhaps never clearly seen. Our next story shows the sharp contrast between spiritual performance and genuine understanding. This is the teaching of the head that wished to be severed. At the great monastery of Zhaozhou, where hundreds of monks gathered daily for meditation and study, mornings followed ancient rhythms. After the pre-dawn sitting, as first light touched the surrounding peaks, monks dispersed to their duties: gardens, kitchens, script copying, and maintaining the monastery buildings. One morning, the venerable abbot Zhaozhou made his usual walk through the grounds, observing both his students' well-being and the state of their practice. His presence was gentle, yet piercing. Monks never knew when casual words might become teachings, or when cherished insights might be exposed as mere ideas. Passing behind the main meditation hall, where the community gathered twice daily for silent sitting, the abbot noticed a young monk seated alone in the building's shadow. The monk seemed engaged in practice, though separated from the scheduled activities of the community. "Brother," Zhaozhou asked softly, approaching with steps refined by decades of mindful walking, "where have all the virtuous ones gone?" The question sounded simple, almost casual, yet those familiar with his style sensed the depth hidden within it. Was he asking about physical whereabouts, spiritual attainment, or something deeper? The young monk looked up confidently. Having trained there for years, he believed he understood Zen's essentials. This felt like a chance to demonstrate his grasp of the Dharma. "They have all gone to work," the monk replied matter-of-factly, gesturing toward the areas where his brothers labored. His tone implied the answer was obvious. Virtuous people are busy, not idle. What happened next would completely shock the young monk. Without warning, Zhaozhou slipped a sharp knife from the folds of his robe, its blade flashing in the morning light. Instead of threatening the monk, he did something far more disturbing. With perfect calm, the abbot extended his own neck, baring his throat, and placed the knife into the stunned monk's hands. His voice stayed gentle, almost casual, as if making a simple request. "My duties as abbot are many and heavy," he said sincerely. "I wonder if you might cut off my head for me. It would truly help with my responsibilities." The young monk's eyes widened in terror. His hands shook as he stared at the blade and his teacher's exposed neck. Everything violated his ideas of monastic conduct, spiritual teaching, and basic decency. Unable to grasp any deeper meaning, trapped at the literal level of the request, the terrified monk dropped the knife and fled. He ran far from the hall, heart pounding, mind spinning in fear and confusion. Zhao Zhou calmly retrieved the knife, returned it to his robe, and continued his morning walk with the same quiet composure. As the Buddha observed, it is better to travel well than to arrive. This story reveals the vast gap between intellectual understanding and true realization. Why do we so often confuse ideas with wisdom? Zen shows how the thinking mind collects spiritual concepts, organizing them neatly, creating an illusion of insight without the transforming force of direct experience. The monk's answer, "They have all gone to work," reflects dualistic thinking that separates practice from daily life. He assumed virtue lies in productivity rather than stillness, believing awakened activity and rest must oppose each other. But Zhao Zhou's teaching goes far deeper. By offering his neck, he asked a radical question. If the virtuous ones truly went to work, what work mattered most? If responsibility was supreme, what response was most compassionate? Examine your own spiritual assumptions closely. How often do we divide life into sacred and ordinary, spiritual tasks and mundane chores, important moments and trivial time? This split blinds us to the truth that every moment invites awakened response. The abbot's gesture points straight to the heart of Zen. Real compassion may demand actions that break conventional logic. When someone suffers under responsibility, attachment, or even spiritual ambition, what is the most loving response? Sometimes it means cutting through what seems most precious: our roles, concepts, even our sense of self. Zen master Linji said, "If you meet the Buddha on the road, kill the Buddha." This shocking phrase echoes Zhao Zhou's teaching. Any fixed image of enlightenment or attachment to spiritual identity becomes an obstacle. True compassion may require destroying what we believe we are protecting. The young monk's panic and escape showed how completely he missed the deeper teaching. He stayed trapped in literal meaning, unable to see beyond the abbot's words to their invitation for transformation. His spiritual understanding, though eloquent, remained entirely conceptual. Reflect on your own sense of spiritual responsibility and helping others. When someone brings you suffering, do you offer ideas and advice, or respond from deeper understanding? Are you willing to give up comfortable spiritual positions to meet people where they truly are? This wisdom reveals the gap between speaking about virtue and living it. The monk knew where virtuous people go and what they do. Yet when faced with radical compassion, he ran away. His knowledge was separated from awakened action. Zen practice cultivates what is called great doubt, the courage to question even our most treasured spiritual ideas. This doubt is not cynicism, but openness to insight beyond current concepts. Are we ready to let our certainties be challenged, even broken, if it leads to awakening? Tonight, when chances arise to help others, can you sense the difference between giving what you think is needed and responding from true understanding? Can you feel how compassion may require cutting through your own assumptions about proper spiritual behavior? The Buddha spoke to this non-dual truth. In caring for others, you care for yourself. In caring for yourself, you care for others. The abbot's offer to give up his own head points to this unity. When interconnection is seen clearly, the line between self and other dissolves into spontaneous compassion. Now let us turn to a Zen story about the ultimate nature of spiritual truth. This is the meeting of the emperor and the master. In ancient China, ruled an emperor renowned for devotion to Buddhism. Unlike rulers focused on power alone, he spent years studying texts, supporting monasteries, and seeking the deepest truths. His palace held thousands of scrolls, and learned monks were often invited to teach. When news reached him of a Zen master whose insight surpassed ordinary knowledge, the emperor sent for him at once. He wished to measure his own understanding against the master's famed wisdom. On the day of arrival, the palace hummed with anticipation. The emperor prepared elaborate questions to display his devotion and refined grasp of doctrine. Surely such preparation would impress even a great teacher. Yet when the master entered the throne room, he appeared entirely ordinary. His robes were plain and worn from travel, his manner humble yet alert. The emperor, seated on a golden throne beneath images of Buddhist saints, felt both excitement and unease. "Venerable master," he began, his voice echoing through the vast hall, "I have studied the Buddhist teachings for many years. I have built temples, supported monks, and devoted my life to the sacred path." The emperor said, "Tell me, what is the highest truth of Buddhist teaching?" He leaned forward, expecting a profound discourse to affirm years of study, perhaps the Four Noble Truths, or a secret teaching preserved through ages. Instead, the master met his gaze, seeing through every pretense, and answered softly, "Vast emptiness, no trace of holiness." Silence settled over the hall. The emperor blinked in disbelief. Where were the doctrines, the texts, the exalted principles? "If there is no holiness," he asked, confusion rising, "then who are you? What makes you a master?" The questions carried the weight of years spent accumulating merit and identity. As a devout ruler, the master's words seemed to dissolve the foundation of that carefully built self-image. The reply came just as simply, "I do not know." In 3 words, every concept and claim fell away. The master departed as quietly as he had arrived, leaving the emperor alone in reflective silence. As the Buddha observed, "Those who think they know, don't know. Those who know they don't know, know." This paradox points to Zen's heart. Wisdom begins not by adding knowledge, but by seeing the limits of concepts. Seeking can become another form of grasping. We collect teachings like jewels, believing awakening comes from owning enough sacred knowledge. Yet ultimate truth cannot be possessed or explained conventionally. Vast emptiness points to shunyata, not nothingness, but the absence of fixed, independent essence our thoughts assume. All phenomena arise interdependently. Emptiness is not an idea to master, but a reality to live. No trace of holiness does not deny spirituality. It transcends the split between sacred and ordinary. Searching for holiness implies lack when completeness is already here. Reflect on your own path. Notice how the mind turns insights into possessions, categorizing, repeating, grasping. Each grasp moves us away from the simple presence that allowed insight. The emperor mirrors sincere seekers who confuse spiritual materialism with awakening. His studies mattered, yet became obstacles to direct recognition of what was always present. I do not know. Names don't know. Mind not ignorance, but open receptivity. Meeting what is without filtering through assumptions. From this mind, fitting action arises without interference. In cultures that prize certainty, saying, "I don't know," feels like failure. In Zen, it opens fresh perception. Expert mind sees expectations. Beginner's mind sees what's here. Tonight, resting in this moment, what if you set aside what you think you know about spirituality? Can you taste the freedom of not knowing the spaciousness that appears when we stop filling emptiness with ideas? As the Buddha taught, in the sky there is no east or west. Human beings create distinctions within their own minds, and then accept those divisions as reality. The vast emptiness the Master indicated is boundless, holding every possibility without being constrained by any form. When we recognize this emptiness as our true nature, we encounter the most ordinary miracle of all. This moment, exactly as it is, missing nothing. Now let us turn to a story about belief and how faith itself shapes destiny. This is the tale of a general and a single coin that uncovered a deeper truth. A Japanese general once faced a situation that appeared utterly hopeless. His army was vastly outnumbered by the enemy. The land favored his opponents. And by every conventional rule of military strategy, defeat seemed inevitable. Yet deep within him lived an unshakable sense that victory was still possible. Perhaps it was intuition, perhaps desperate hope, but he believed his cause was just. Though fewer, his soldiers carried a fierce fighting spirit, a spirit strong enough to challenge the odds. Still, the soldiers could count, and they could see the overwhelming force before them. Fear spread through the ranks like an infection. Doubt darkened their faces. Quiet whispers of despair moved through the camp, and the general felt morale collapsing even before the battle began. He understood that an army convinced it will lose is already defeated, regardless of skill or weapons. Numbers mean little when hearts have surrendered, yet an army that truly believes in victory can achieve the impossible through the sheer power of conviction alone. On the morning of battle, as they marched toward their fate, the general led his troops to a small shrine beside the road. Warriors had paused there for centuries to pray before uncertain futures. Gathering his men, the general offered sincere prayers, asking for divine protection and blessing in the coming fight. When the prayers ended, the general reached into his pocket and drew out a simple coin, holding it high for all to see. "My brothers," he called, his voice echoing across the ranks. "We have prayed. Now we will allow heaven to reveal our destiny. I will toss this coin into the air. If it lands heads, we are destined to win. If it lands tails, we are fated to lose. Let us see what the gods have decided." The soldiers leaned in, breath held tight. Everything seemed to rest on this single moment. A small piece of metal, turning in the morning light. The general tossed the coin upward. Every gaze followed its arc as it rose, paused briefly against the sky, then fell back to the ground. The coin landed motionless in the dust. It was heads. A roar of celebration burst from the troops, echoing across the valley. Soldiers who moments earlier were frozen with fear now laughed and embraced one another, filled with confidence. Heaven had spoken. Victory was assured. Believing themselves divinely favored, they charged the enemy with unified strength and fierce resolve, achieving exactly what the coin had foretold. Against every expectation, they achieved a decisive victory, overwhelming forces far larger than their own, and securing a triumph remembered for generations. After the battle, as the general walked among his celebrating soldiers, his lieutenant approached, amazement shining in his eyes. "General," he said, "this is extraordinary. After Estepig, the coin revealed our destiny exactly as you promised. Surely no human power can alter what heaven has decided." "You are completely right," the general replied, with a knowing smile. Reaching into his pocket, he drew out the coin and held it up for close inspection. "No one can change destiny." The lieutenant stared and gasped. Both sides of the coin showed heads. The Buddha once taught, "All that we are arises from what we have thought. Mind is everything." Here we see the deep truth that destiny is not imposed upon us, but shaped through the force of our beliefs and expectations. Why do we so quickly assume that fate lies beyond our influence, when the mind plays such a powerful role in shaping events? Zen Buddhism teaches that although we cannot control all outer conditions, we hold immense power over the inner attitudes that shape how we respond to whatever appears. The general understood something profound about human psychology and reality itself. He knew his soldiers' belief in victory mattered more than their numerical disadvantage. Confidence, resolve, and fighting spirit, when genuine, could overcome even superior numbers. Yet the deeper teaching is this: the general did not merely deceive his troops. He created conditions that allowed their natural courage to surface. The soldiers already possessed strength and skill. What they needed was belief in themselves and in their cause. Reflect on your own relationship with destiny and possibility. How often do you assume outcomes are fixed? That success or failure lies beyond your reach? The two-headed coin symbolizes our capacity to tilt circumstances through the quality of our engagement. This does not mean belief alone controls reality, or that optimism magically guarantees results. The soldiers still had to fight. They still needed courage and skill, but belief created the mental conditions that allowed their best qualities to emerge. Zen practice teaches balance between effort and surrender, intention and acceptance. We learn that while we cannot command outcomes, we can deeply influence the energy and attention we bring to each moment. This engagement often determines success or failure, regardless of circumstances. Zen master Hangpo taught, "The foolish reject what they see, not what they think. It's door. The wise reject what they think, not what they see." The general saw that his soldiers' thoughts about victory mattered more than calculations of numbers. He worked with the reality of the mind instead of resisting it. Look closely at the challenges and opportunities in your own life. Where might you be carrying a tails mentality? Expecting defeat before fully engaging, focusing on obstacles rather than possibilities, letting fear limit your effort. And where might you need to create your own two-headed coin, a perspective or practice that consistently guides you toward positive engagement? Whatever the circumstances, the Buddha taught, we become what we think. Everything we are arises from thought, and through thought, we shape our world. This is not magic, but recognition of the creative force of awareness itself. When we meet life with confidence, clarity, and dedication, hidden abilities often reveal themselves. Tonight, as you reflect on the battles before you and the outcomes you desire, can you discover your own form of the general's wisdom? Can you create inner conditions that support your highest potential rather than your deepest fears? While destiny cannot be controlled, your beliefs strongly influence how it unfolds through you. The Buddha also taught that thousands of candles can be lit from one flame without diminishing it. Happiness does not lessen when shared. The general's confidence ignited belief in every soldier. Sometimes the greatest act is creating conditions that allow ourselves and others to uncover strength that already exists. Now we turn to a story of a young monk who believed he had failed his spiritual path. This is the story of the Golden Wake. At a quiet monastery overlooking a calm mountain lake, a young student sat slumped on the steps as the sun slowly sank, his posture heavy with discouragement. For months, he had struggled, unable to understand teachings that came easily to other monks. "The boat is coming to take me home because I have failed here," he said to his teacher, who had silently joined him on the steps. "What will I tell my family? They sent me with such hope, believing I would return a learned monk who could guide others." The elder teacher gazed at the lake, where a small boat drifted across the water, the sunset bathing everything in gold. "Tell them you did your best," he replied gently. "But I wanted to be a great monk," the boy said sadly. "I dreamed of teaching others, leading meditation, making a difference." "You can," the teacher answered simply. "How?" the boy asked, confused. "I couldn't even memorize simple sutras. I fell asleep in meditation. I failed at what matters most." The teacher smiled and gestured toward the lake. "Live from your heart. Watch carefully. Do you see that boat crossing the water with the sun behind it?" "Yes," the boy replied. "Do you see its wake spreading across the lake? How it forms a golden triangle behind the bow?" The boy squinted. "A little." "Squint," the teacher said kindly. "That boat is you. The lake is your life. The wake is the effect you have on the world. Each ripple creates another. By living with wisdom and love, you teach simply by being who you are. Some will carry your example forward to others. In this way, the widening golden wake of good deeds gives rise to more goodness. Most of all, notice how every ripple catches the sunlight and reflects it back toward the sky." The boy watched in awe as the small boat moved on, its wake forming a widening triangle of light. Each tiny wave shimmered, sending countless sparks of gold back into the air. "Would you come home with me and explain this to my father?" the boy asked, hope warming his voice. The Buddha taught, "A candle loses nothing by lighting another candle." This deeper lesson shows that influence spreads not through perfection, but through a sincere heart devoted to goodness. Why do we assume only titles or formal achievements allow us to make a difference? Zen points to our attachment to validation and our misunderstanding of how wisdom truly passes between people. We think teaching requires status, when the deepest lessons are shared through presence and integrity. Reflect on how often people affect your life, not through expertise, but through kindness, patience, or simple warmth. The store clerk who greets you with care, the stranger who offers help with a smile, the friend who listens without judging. These people create ripples far beyond what they can see. In Zen, this is called unconscious teaching, the natural transmission that happens when actions align with values. Like the boat on the lake, we may not see our wake, but it spreads behind us, touching unseen shores. The Buddha said, "Thousands of candles can be lit from one candle without shortening its life." Happiness never diminishes when shared. Each authentic moment becomes a teaching. Each act of compassion sends ripples outward. Each wise response reflects light back toward heaven. Tonight, as you reflect on your own path, can you sense the golden wake you are already creating? Perhaps through patience with family, encouragement to a colleague, or quiet presence in daily moments. The light you reflect may guide paths you will never witness. Let us continue with a teaching about the risky gap between ideas and lived truth. This is the story of the one-eyed monk and the silent debate. In ancient China, wandering monks traveled between monasteries, seeking insight and testing their realization through tradition. Before receiving shelter for the night, a visiting monk had to engage in dharma combat with the abbot or a delegate. This was not physical conflict, but an exchange of questions and paradoxes, revealing the depth of one's realization and presence. At a respected monastery hidden among bamboo groves, a weary monk arrived as evening shadows stretched across the courtyard. His robes were dusty, his sandals worn, yet his eyes shone with alert sincerity. The busy abbot sent his attendant to conduct the formal encounter. This attendant had served the monastery with loyalty for many years, despite what some might call a disadvantage. He had lost one eye in a childhood accident, yet this limitation, perhaps because it sharpened his inner sight, had led him to develop deep insight into the Buddha's teachings. When the two monks met in the formal reception hall, the traveling monk proposed something unusual. "Let us debate in silence," he suggested, signaling they would use gestures instead of words. Some truths, he believed, exist beyond language itself. The attendant agreed, and their silent exchange began. The traveler raised one finger toward the ceiling with calm assurance. Without pause, the attendant answered by lifting 2 fingers. Encouraged, the traveler then raised 3 fingers. The attendant responded by forming a tight fist and holding it firmly between them. The traveler's confidence wavered. He stared at the fist in confusion, alarm flickering across his face. Then, without another gesture, he bowed abruptly and left the hall. Soon after, he sought out the abbot, speaking with respect mixed with disappointment. "Venerable sir, your representative is far beyond my understanding. I must continue my journey and cannot presume to stay here tonight." The abbot, intrigued, asked him to explain what had occurred. "I raised 1 finger," the traveler said, "to symbolize the Buddha, the awakened guide." Your monk replied with 2 fingers, representing the Buddha and the Dharma. "So I raised 3 fingers to show the triple gem, Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha." Then he made a fist, revealing that all 3 are truly one reality. "His insight surpasses mine, so I must seek further instruction elsewhere." The abbot listened in astonishment, knowing well the attendant's straightforward nature. As the traveler disappeared into the dusk, the attendant rushed in, breathing hard and visibly angry. "Where is that insolent man?" he demanded, his single eye blazing. "I have never encountered such rudeness, disguised as spiritual practice." "What happened?" the abbot asked, now deeply curious about these opposing accounts. First, the attendant said heatedly, he insulted me by holding up one finger, pointing out that I have only one eye. I believed we were in spiritual dialogue, he continued, yet he drew attention to my injury. Trying to stay polite, I raised two fingers to show he had two eyes, signaling I bore no resentment. It's really fast. He paused, agitation rising. But he wasn't finished. He raised three fingers, mocking me further, implying that together, we only had three eyes. He wanted to remind me of my disability. That was enough. I clenched my fist because I was about to strike him for his disrespect, but he fled before I could teach him manners. The abbot stood silent, recognizing how the same moment had created two entirely different realities. The Buddha taught, we see the world not as it is, but as we are. This truth appears clearly in the total misunderstanding between the two monks. They witnessed the same gestures, yet each lived inside a completely different version of reality, shaped by their own minds. Praise and blame, pleasure and pain, gain and loss, fame and disgrace. Zen Buddhism calls these the 8 worldly winds. They form inner weather patterns that quietly tint how we interpret everything we encounter. Perception is rarely neutral when these forces are active. The attendant's sensitivity about his missing eye became a powerful filter. Through it, every gesture felt like a personal insult. Years of judgment and pity had shaped such a rigid lens that no other meaning could enter his awareness. The traveling monk was equally conditioned. His spiritual obsession led him to see profound dharma, where there was only hurt and rising anger. His hunger for wisdom transformed aggressive signals into imagined signs of enlightenment. Look closely at your own habits of interpretation. How often do past wounds, present fears, or strong hopes cause you to misread situations entirely? A distracted tone becomes rejection. A suggestion feels like criticism because insecurity is already active. This ancient teaching shows how inner states create outer experience. Both monks were sincere, yet both were mistaken. Neither intended deception. Each simply viewed events through deeply ingrained psychological conditioning. The story raises an essential question. How can we learn to see more clearly, without being trapped by personal stories? Zen practice begins with what is called don't know mind. Staying open instead of rushing to conclusions that confirm fear or belief. When behavior triggers us, can we pause and consider other explanations? Mindfulness of emotion is the second key. The attendant might have noticed his insecurity rising. The traveler might have questioned his urge to find meaning everywhere. A Zen master taught, your everyday mind is the way. This points us inward, to examine the mind that interprets, rather than endlessly analyzing events themselves. The Buddha said, hatred is never ended by hatred, but by non-hatred alone. Had curiosity replaced defensiveness, or assumptions been questioned, the meeting could have awakened both monks. Tonight, as you revisit today's interactions, can you notice where meaning was added? Can you feel the gap between what happened and the story your mind created? As the Buddha taught, peace comes from within. Do not seek it outside. When we see how our inner climate creates outer conflict, clear perception becomes possible, serving both wisdom and compassion. Our next story uncovers how attachment can quietly destroy what we believe we love most. This is the story of the chrysanthemum garden. In ancient Japan's countryside, where autumn mist drifted through elegant estates, lived a wealthy baron whose passion crossed into obsession. His mansion stood proudly among hills, but his heart belonged entirely to the garden behind it. There, rows of chrysanthemums bloomed in breathtaking beauty. Deep purple, glowing gold, pure white. The baron studied each variety intensely, tending every plant with devotion. His knowledge was vast, his care relentless. Yet devotion slowly darkened into fixation. He watched the flowers more closely than his own family. Fear ruled the household, knowing any mistake near the garden could bring punishment. Servants suffered his anger for broken blossoms. The home grew heavy with tension, resentment, and quiet dread. One autumn afternoon, tragedy struck. A loyal retainer, rushing through his duties, brushed a prized chrysanthemum and snapped its bloom. When the Baron saw the damage, fury erupted. "Confinement!" he shouted. The servant was imprisoned for the accident. The punishment felt unbearable. Shame turned to despair, then rage. Bound by warrior honor, the retainer resolved to commit seppuku, choosing death over disgrace for a single flower. News reached Zen Master Sengai. Known for deep compassion and insight, Sengai hurried to the estate and stopped the suicide. Yet he saw the deeper sickness remained. That night, in steady rain, when the flowers were most radiant, Sengai slipped into the garden, carrying a sharp sickle. In darkness, he cut down every chrysanthemum, hundreds of blooms shaped by years of care. The noise woke the Baron, who rushed out with sword drawn, demanding to know who destroyed his treasured garden. Sengai stood calmly amid fallen petals. "Even weeds grow rank if never cut," he said evenly. In that instant, the Baron's obsession shattered. Seeing his flowers reduced to weeds in the master's eyes, clarity struck him deeply. It was like waking from fevered sleep. From that night on, the Baron never grew chrysanthemums again. The Buddha taught, attachment is the root of suffering. Through Sengai's act, the Baron saw how clinging had transformed love into harm. This story reveals how attachment poisons what we cherish. The Baron loved beauty, yet possession twisted love into control and care into fear. Buddhism teaches that ego seeks safety through grasping, trying to freeze what is, by nature, impermanent. True love knows how to appreciate without clinging, to enjoy without possession, to care without control. Attachment love, however, tries to freeze beauty, turning the beloved into part of our own identity. This pattern appears clearly in modern relationships. Parents who love so intensely they become controlling, stifling the growth they claim to nurture. Partners who love possessively create jealousy and suspicion. Collectors grow so attached to objects that joy disappears. The chrysanthemums symbolize anything we elevate beyond its natural place. This may be career success, physical appearance, spiritual progress, or a carefully crafted lifestyle we fear losing. When attachment tightens, suffering spreads outward, affecting everyone nearby. Zen teacher Suzuki Roshi said, "You are perfect as you are, and you could use a little improvement." This paradox reveals the balance between appreciation and attachment. We can love deeply while holding lightly, caring fully without clinging to results. Sengai's drastic act shows how powerful medicine is sometimes needed to break deep attachment. At times, life removes what we cling to, so we can finally see clearly. Loss, disappointment, and impermanence, though painful, often become teachers, exposing the difference between true love and possessive grasping. Notice the Baron doesn't simply reduce his gardening, he stops entirely. This suggests that sometimes the wisest response is complete withdrawal, until we can relate with freedom and clarity. Tonight, ask yourself, what is your chrysanthemum garden? What do you love so intensely that it brings control or suffering to yourself or others? Can you imagine loving it while holding it more gently? Buddha's wisdom reminds us that, in the end, only three things matter: how deeply you loved, how gently you lived, and how gracefully you let go. True love releases what it cherishes, trusting the natural rhythm of arising and passing away. Let us continue with a story about fearlessness and unconditional compassion. This is the tale of the thief and the Zen master. One quiet evening, as twilight colored the sky in gold and violet, Zen master Shashiri Kojun sat in his modest home chanting ancient sutras. His voice moved calmly through the rooms, each word a meditation, each breath a prayer, candlelight flickering softly on the walls. Suddenly, the peace shattered. The door flew open with a crash, and a desperate man stormed in, gripping a sword that glinted in the candlelight. His eyes burned with fear, clothes torn and dirty, breath heavy from running. He had chosen this lonely house, believing it would offer easy prey, A peaceful monk offered no resistance. "Money or your life?" the thief demanded, his voice shaking with fear and aggression. He expected panic or pleading. But Shichiri did not look up. He calmly continued reciting, then paused to address the intruder. "Please don't interrupt my practice," he said gently, as if asking someone to close a door. "If you need money, help yourself. It's in that drawer." He gestured toward a wooden chest and returned to his sutra as though nothing unusual had happened. The thief froze, sword still raised, utterly confused. He had never seen such a response. No fear, no anger, only practical kindness, like a neighbor lending sugar. Shaking his head, he went to the drawer and gathered coins and small valuables. Behind him, the master's steady voice continued chanting, peaceful as ever. As the thief prepared to leave, Shichiri spoke again, finally lifting his eyes. "Wait. Please don't take everything. I need some money to pay my taxes tomorrow. Leave a little for me, won't you?" The thief stared in disbelief. A man calmly bargaining during his own robbery. Without thinking, he returned some coins to the drawer and turned to leave, certain the strange encounter was over. Once more, the master stopped him. "You took my money," Shichiri said mildly, "and you didn't even thank me. That's rather impolite." The words stunned the thief. His sword hand trembled. Never had he felt so unsettled. Here was someone treating robbery as a favor, caring more about manners than safety. "Thank you," the thief whispered, then fled into the night. Later, when he was caught and confessed to many crimes, including this one, Shichiri was summoned to court. Officials expected anger and accusation. Instead, Shichiri spoke calmly. "This man stole nothing from me," he said. "I gave him the money freely. He even thanked me." His words filled the courtroom with silence, though reminded gently. The chained thief felt something break open inside. This man had shown kindness during the crime and mercy afterward. For the first time in years, tears filled his eyes. Not tears of rage or shame, but recognition. He had encountered unconditional love. After his release, the former thief sought out Shichiri and begged to study with him. Under patient guidance, he learned the same fearless compassion. Years later, through sincere practice and the master's unwavering trust, he realized deep peace and wisdom. As the Buddha taught, hatred never ends hatred, but only love. This story reveals the power of meeting violence with peace, taking with giving, fear with love. Why do we assume force must answer force? Aggression must meet defense. Zen Buddhism shows that this instinct often sustains suffering. When hostility is met with hostility, the cycle only tightens, never heals. Yet when we answer with true compassion, not passive surrender but active love, we open space for transformation that could not arise otherwise. Look honestly at your own life. When anger, criticism, or demands come toward you, what is your instinctive response? Most of us instantly raise defenses, preparing to strike back or pull away. Notice what unfolds inside you during these defensive moves. Does your body relax or tighten? Does the conflict soften or grow stronger? Shichiri's response shows what Zen calls skillful means, acting from clarity rather than habit. His fearlessness was not ignorance of danger, but insight into the nature of suffering itself. He saw that the thief's violence was born from desperation and pain, not inherent cruelty. By refusing to label him an enemy, Shichiri gave the thief a chance to see himself anew. Zen practice cultivates what we might call the courage of defenselessness. This does not mean foolishness or inviting harm. It means developing the strength to respond from our deepest wisdom instead of our most primitive impulses. The Buddha taught that only three things truly matter: how well we live, how well we love, and how gracefully we let go. Shichiri embodied all three in that single encounter. He lived in full presence, loved without condition, and released attachment to possessions and even personal safety. Reflect on those who challenge you: the difficult coworker, the critical relative, the aggressive driver. What would it mean to meet them with the same fearless compassion Shichiri showed, not by agreeing or surrendering, but by refusing to mirror their reactivity, by staying rooted in your own calm center, regardless of their behavior? Tonight, as moments of tension arise, can you remember the master who welcomed a robber as a guest? Can you pause between stimulus and response? In that pause, choice appears. You may meet aggression with peace, taking with generosity, fear with love. The Buddha said one word that brings peace is better than 1,000 empty ones. Sometimes, the strongest answer to violence is unwavering compassion, trusting love's power beyond force. Let us continue with a story about contentment and desire. This is the journey of the stonecutter. In mountain villages, there lived a humble stonecutter who unknowingly possessed the secret of happiness. Each dawn, he climbed narrow paths to the quarries, tools resting on his shoulders. As he worked among the rocks, he sang old mountain songs that echoed through the valleys. Though poor by society's standards, living in a simple hut with few belongings, he wanted nothing more. His life felt whole in its rhythm, labor, and mountain beauty. One day, he was summoned to work at the mansion of a wealthy nobleman. As he neared the estate, his eyes widened at the splendor. Marble pillars rose skyward, gardens spread in perfect balance. For the first time, desire pierced his contentment. "If only I were rich," he sighed. "Then I wouldn't labor and sweat as I do now." To his shock, a voice whispered from the stones, "Your wish is granted. From now on, whatever you desire will be yours." He returned home to find his humble hut replaced by a grand mansion. Delighted, he set aside his tools and embraced a life of luxury. One hot afternoon, gazing from carved windows, he saw the king's procession pass. The ruler sat cool and composed, shaded and powerful. "I wish I were king," he thought, and at once reclined on silk cushions within a royal carriage. Yet the carriage grew stifling. Even thick walls could not stop the heat. "I wish I were the sun," he declared, becoming radiant power itself. He felt supreme until dark storm clouds gathered and blocked his light completely. "Then let me be a cloud." He became a vast storm, exulting in power until rain struck a massive rock that stopped it cold. "A rock stronger than me. I wish to be a rock." He stood tall, feeling at last enduring and unmovable. Soon he heard chipping below. A small human cut stone away. "A tiny being stronger than me. I want to be a man again." He returned to the mountain paths as a stonecutter. This time, as breezes moved, deep contentment filled his heart. His song returned, fuller than before, born of acceptance of who he was. The Buddha said, "Health is the greatest gift. Contentment, the greatest wealth." This wisdom reveals the endless wanting that blinds us to abundance already here. Why do we chase new conditions? Believing happiness lies in the next change. Each fulfilled desire gives rise to another, forming a cycle of dissatisfaction. The stonecutter's journey shows the futility of seeking joy through external shifts. "I'll be happy when I'm promoted." Then new pressures appear. "I'll be content with more money." Then worries grow. Each success reveals another peak. Suzuki Roshi said, "You are perfect as you are, and you can use a little improvement." This paradox holds the heart of contentment, fully accepting what is, while engaging life's changes. The stonecutter's last change was not becoming more, but appreciating what he had always been. His work stayed, his relationship to life transformed. Contentment isn't found by changing experiences, but by changing awareness. Tonight, as the mind reaches for what's absent, try the stonecutter's wisdom. Can you hear the song that arises when you stop trying to be anything else? As the Buddha taught, contentment is natural wealth. Luxury is a refined form of poverty. The deepest transformation isn't becoming someone else, but recognizing the wholeness already present in who we are. Now, let us explore a story about true help and authentic teaching. This is the meeting of a psychiatrist and a Zen master. At a gathering of professionals and spiritual teachers, a psychiatrist found himself speaking with a well-known Zen master. His career was built on helping people examine emotional pain, analyze psychological patterns, and apply therapies meant to improve mental and emotional health. Curious about how their methods differed, the psychiatrist asked a question that had lingered throughout their talk. "I've spent years learning techniques to help people with emotional struggles," he said. "I'm interested in your approach. How exactly do you help people?" The master received the question with calm presence, listening not only to the words, but to the assumptions beneath them. After a brief silence, he answered simply yet deeply, "I bring them to a place where no questions remain." The psychiatrist hesitated, unsure if this was literal or symbolic. "I don't quite understand," he said. "Isn't questioning essential for growth and insight?" The master smiled softly. "Questions arise from a mind that believes something is missing. When a person arrives where questions naturally fall away, they have found what they were truly seeking." Buddha taught, "Question everything. Find your own light." Yet here lies a paradox. True discovery comes not from endless inquiry, but from a wholeness where questions dissolve. Why do we assume helping means answering questions, when the deepest healing may come from dissolving the one who questions? Zen suggests many of our difficulties exist only because we keep asking the very questions that sustain them. The psychiatrist's method, like most helping professions, focuses on analysis, origins, and strategies for resolution. This approach has real value and often eases suffering. Yet the master points to something more radical, guiding people beyond the framework that creates their problems. Consider the questions filling your own mind. How can I be happier? Why do I repeat mistakes? What should I do with my life? Each assumes a seeker who lacks something. But what if the seeker itself fuels the search? In Zen, we see many problems persist because we keep trying to solve them. The mind that keeps asking, "How do I find peace?" is often the very mind disturbing the peace already here. The one who strains for enlightenment may strengthen the sense of separation that creates feeling unenlightened. The master's method isn't about silencing inquiry or encouraging ignorance. It's about leading people into a direct experience of wholeness, where questions naturally fall away because nothing remains to be sought. Zen Master Bankai taught, "The unborn Buddha mind can handle whatever appears." When completeness is realized, questions about becoming complete simply stop arising. Problems aren't fixed so much as recognized as passing appearances within vast awareness. This doesn't erase practical questions like what to eat or which road to take. What dissolve are existential questions born from a deep sense of lack or incompleteness. The Buddha said, "There is nothing to do, nothing to gain, nothing to lose." This points to the same truth the master revealed. Real help doesn't add more tasks or answers, but shows us we already are what we've been seeking. Look closely at your own habit of questioning. How much mental energy goes into fixing your life instead of living it? What remains if you stop asking questions that assume something is broken or missing? The psychiatrist assists through analysis and tools. The master helps by pointing to what needs no fixing at all. Both approaches can be useful, yet the master works at the root, not the branches, dissolving the seeker rather than feeding the search. Tonight, notice the questions filling your mind. Can you sense what exists beneath them? The awareness that needs no answers because it lacks nothing. As the Buddha observed, peace comes from within. Do not seek it elsewhere. The deepest help we give or receive is realizing what we seek was never absent. Questions end, not because they're answered, but because the questioner discovers there was never anything to ask. Let us continue with a story about unexpected wisdom found in laughter, and the suffering born from taking ourselves too seriously. This is the tale of the monk who met his true teacher. In a remote mountain monastery in ancient China lived a young monk of intense discipline. Each morning before dawn, he rose to meditate, sitting motionless for hours in flawless posture. He studied texts with scholarly rigor, memorizing sutras and debating philosophy with fierce focus. Other monks often spoke of his seriousness and unwavering devotion to the Dharma. One cool autumn morning, While studying a difficult passage on emptiness, he encountered something that utterly confused him. The text seemed to contradict everything he believed he understood. The words were clear alone, yet together dissolved into paradox the moment he grasped them. Determined to understand, he marked the passage and went to the master's quarters. The elder sat quietly as sunlight streamed through paper windows, casting light and shadow on the wooden floor. "Venerable master," the monk said, bowing deeply, "I've encountered a teaching I cannot understand. Please help me see its meaning." He recited the passage precisely, outlining his confusion and the interpretations he had explored. The master listened closely, nodding at times, thoughtful and attentive. When the monk finished, something wholly unexpected occurred. The master suddenly smiled, then chuckled softly, and burst into deep, uncontrollable laughter. His body shook with delight, tears running down his lined face. The monk stood still, stunned. This was not the response he imagined. Where he expected explanation, there was only laughter. The laughter filled the room, echoing and growing stronger. Without any explanation, the master rose, still laughing, and walked away, leaving the monk alone with confusion and rising distress. For the next 3 days, the monk could think of nothing else. The mysterious laughter haunted him constantly. He barely ate. His meditation scattered, sleep shallow and broken. The question consumed him. Why had sincere inquiry met such amusement? Other monks noticed his agitation, but his replies were uncertain and troubled. He felt humiliated, confused, increasingly restless. Had the master mocked him? Was his question foolish? Had years of discipline meant nothing? Unable to endure the turmoil, he returned to the master's room. This time, he neither bowed nor recited texts. He spoke from the heart. "Master, for 3 days your reaction has unsettled me. I cannot eat, sleep, or meditate. Please tell me why you laughed at my sincere search. Have I done something wrong?" The master's face softened. He invited the monk to sit and spoke gently. "Monk, do you know your problem?" the master asked kindly. "You are worse than a clown." The words struck like a blow. The monk stared in shock. "How can that be? I've devoted my life to practice, to understanding the Buddha's teaching. I've renounced pleasures and pursued wisdom sincerely. How can you compare me to an entertainer?" The master smiled and said, "A clown's joy is making others laugh. When people laugh, he feels fulfilled. His purpose is to bring lightness and joy. But you, when someone laughs, you suffer. You feel disturbed and tormented. Are you not worse than a clown?" At these words, insight dawned. The monk saw how attachment to being serious caused his pain. He was bound to his image as a devoted seeker. The laughter had not mocked him. It was pure delight in the Dharma's paradox. In that instant, the monk began to laugh softly at first, then freely. He laughed at his seriousness, his clinging to understanding, and the absurd beauty of grimly seeking enlightenment. His laughter finally merged with the master's laughter from 3 days before. In that shared joy, understanding bloomed effortlessly. As the Buddha taught, when you light a lamp for another, your own path is illuminated. This lesson reveals how our reactions to others mirror the condition of our own minds. Why do we feel unsettled when others express joy in ways we don't comprehend? Zen Buddhism identifies several sources of this suffering. First is our attachment to being understood and affirmed. The monk's pain came not from laughter itself, but from his need for his question to be treated with solemn seriousness. Second is identification with a spiritual image. When we cling to being seen as sincere seekers or disciplined practitioners, we lose the openness that allows real learning. The monk's attachment to his serious identity prevented him from receiving the teaching carried by laughter. Third is a narrow view of how wisdom is transmitted. We expect teaching to appear as formal explanations or logical analysis, yet awakening often arrives unexpectedly through laughter, a child's question, a bell's sound, or an utterly ordinary moment. Reflect on how often teachings are missed because they don't fit expectations. A casual remark may hold needed insight, but we dismiss it if the speaker seems unqualified. Life may teach through situations we find irritating, or people we judge as superficial. Zen teacher Suzuki Roshi said, "In the beginner's mind, there are many possibilities. In the expert's mind, few." The monk's expertise became an obstacle. His certainty about how teaching should appear blocked the lesson offered through unexpected laughter. This story raises a core question. Are we seeking understanding, or seeking to be understood? Are we open to wisdom in any form, or only when it confirms our views? The master's laughter taught the joyful, playful, beyond logic nature of the Dharma itself. Tonight, when others respond in ways that don't match your expectations, remember the monk's insight. Laughter where you expected gravity, casualness where you hoped for depth, or joy where seriousness seemed proper, may hold teachings not yet seen. The Buddha said, "Thousands of candles may be lit from one candle, and its flame is not diminished. Happiness never decreases by being shared." The master's laughter did not weaken the Dharma. It celebrated its boundless joy. Joy the monk learned to share instead of resist. Let us continue with a warning about spiritual arrogance. This is the story of the clever monkey. In ancient China, the Prince of Wu set out by pleasure boat to Monkey Mountain, famed for its beauty and wildlife. Surrounded by attendants, he approached with royal ease, expecting nature itself to yield as people did. The moment the forest monkeys noticed the royal procession, panic erupted. Chattering cries filled the air as dozens fled upward, scrambling into the tallest branches. What had been a lively forest fell suddenly quiet, save for rustling leaves, as instinct drove them to hide from human intruders. Yet one monkey showed no fear at all. He seemed entirely indifferent to the royal presence, continuing his daring acrobatics with ease. Swinging from branch to branch, he leapt and twisted gracefully, as if performing for an invisible audience, unconcerned by danger below. His movements were smooth and assured, each motion displaying remarkable agility and intelligence compared to his trembling companions. Prince Wu watched with rising irritation. This animal showed no respect for royal authority, its casual confidence appearing to mock the prince's very presence. The monkey's boldness felt like a direct challenge. Determined to humble it, the prince drew his bow and released an arrow. To everyone's astonishment, the monkey caught it mid-air, snatching it effortlessly. Like plucking a leaf from the wind, he inspected the arrow briefly, then tossed it aside with careless disdain. The prince's face flushed with anger. His mastery as an archer had been ridiculed by a beast. "Attack!" he commanded. "Bring that arrogant creature down." Arrows rained through the air. Overwhelmed by the sudden barrage, the monkey could not evade them all. Struck repeatedly, he fell lifeless to the forest floor, his rare skill useless against sheer force. The prince turned to his wise companion. "Yen Pui, do you see?" the prince said. He trusted his cleverness. He believed himself untouchable. Remember this: never rely on distinction or talent when dealing with men. Yen Pui absorbed the lesson, later reflecting on how his own reputation might breed the same pride. Returning home, he quietly became a disciple of a humble sage, seeking to erase anything that made him stand out. He renounced privilege and hid every mark of distinction. Through steady practice, Yen Pui cultivated humility so deep that people no longer knew how to judge him. He became so ordinary, so unremarkable, that others sensed a profound depth within him. They revered him not for display, but for the mystery beneath his simplicity. The Buddha spoke of this: "Those who know do not speak. Those who speak do not know." My Prestras Ranger. This story exposes the danger of turning wisdom into identity. Why do we feel compelled to display insight or special qualities? Zen shows how the ego hijacks even true understanding, transforming it into tools of pride, separation, and imagined superiority. Achievements meant to dissolve the self can strengthen it when we cling to being advanced or enlightened. Like the monkey, we may gain real abilities: calm, insight, compassion, yet fall into danger when those gifts become a source of self-importance. But when we start identifying with these qualities, using them to separate ourselves from others, they turn into weapons that ultimately undo us. This ancient insight reveals a paradox at the heart of spiritual growth. The more authentic the progress, the less visible it needs to be. True wisdom naturally expresses itself as humility, because it reveals the deep interconnection of all things, leaving no ground for superiority. Zen teacher Shunryu Suzuki spoke of "don't know mind" as beginner's mind, not ignorance, but insight into how limited our concepts truly are. The monkey's tragedy was believing his cleverness made him special, instead of seeing it as a passing expression of universal intelligence. The Buddha taught, "Better than 1,000 empty words is one that brings peace." By hiding distinction, Yenpui found influence through presence, not display. Reflect on your own path. Can you notice moments when insight or ability becomes subtle pride? When meditation, understanding, or compassion becomes a way of feeling different or superior? Each time practice turns into identity, we repeat the monkey's dangerous performance. Tonight, as you rest in simple being, can you practice becoming nobody special? Can you feel the freedom that comes not from proving wisdom, but from resting in ordinary awareness itself? As the Buddha said, "Those free of resentment find peace." The deepest peace comes when even peace is released. As we bring tonight's exploration toward completion, notice that the calm you've touched is not something to create or chase. It already exists, woven into your being, quietly present beneath everyday awareness. The Buddha reminded us, "Peace comes from within. Do not seek it without." This ancient reminder shows that the clarity you feel tonight doesn't rely on special conditions. It arises naturally from presence, from conscious breathing, from witnessing thoughts without entanglement. Each story tonight was an invitation to remember what you already know within. Contentment flows not from grasping or controlling, but from letting go with grace. Genuine happiness appears when we stop fighting reality and learn to move with it. True freedom comes not from changing the world, but from changing our relationship with whatever arises. Even if the mind wanders tomorrow, even if old habits of worry return, tonight's insights have already taken root. They've settled like seeds in fertile soil, ready to grow whenever met with attention and self-kindness. These teachings reveal not philosophy, but a livable way of ease. Notice how your breath has deepened on its own, how the body has softened, how thoughts have slowed into a gentler pace. These truths aren't hidden in temples or rituals. They live in the simple acts of pausing, breathing, and returning to this moment. Tonight you've remembered this truth, a truth that brightens whenever we stop rushing and begin noticing. Carry forward not just these stories, but the understanding they've stirred. Peace is not a destination, but a way of moving through life. Let this knowing become your compass, guiding you through calm waters and storms alike, with quiet grace. Thank you for traveling with us here at Sleepy Monk. Sleep well.